So today I'm here with Julie, and Julie has an interesting story. We have known each other for
Your entire life.
my entire life.
Since you were 8 months old.
The longest besides my parents.
I would say, yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
And so we've known each other for a really long time, but just in the past, I would say year or so.
Year and a half.
Yeah, we started to uncover a little bit more. So Julie has always been a super smart person, always really successful, but it was always intriguing to me way before I went into neurodiversity how Julie's brain works literally the opposite of mine in so many ways.
In many, many ways.
Yes, which I'm sure was frustrating watching me grow up and
doing spelling tests with you and homework with you. Yes, it was a little difficult because I did not understand why you didn't understand.
That's exactly it. And I didn't.
Exactly.
I didn't know why I didn't understand, right?
Right.
And so it was about a year ago that I sent you some videos. I was doing some training for a company and we were recording videos on ADHD. It was not intentional at all.
No, I was just curious watching your videos because, I always want to see you be successful.
And I remember you texting me and saying, I need to talk to you right now. And me thinking that my videos were just terrible.
Of course, because that would be normally what I would tell you. Do it over.
And so I was fully prepared for like, these videos are awful. And then that's not at all how the conversation went. So let's like replay that.
Okay. So you sent me these videos for my opinion, and understanding that I'm in a upper management level. You were curious to see what I would think. And I started watching these videos and the person in the video started saying things that started really aligning with what I was thinking. And I'm like, wait a minute. So we had a discussion about what this person's background was and what you were discussing. And I'm like, Nancy, do you have a way to tell if somebody has ADHD or dyslexia? I said, pretty confident it's not dyslexia, but boy, I really emulate a lot of the same characteristics that this person on the video does. And you're like, really? Yeah, let me send you a piece of paper. So you sent me a 3-page test and I got about 2/3 down the first page. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that explains so much of my life, because just some of the characteristics of movement, thought process, hyper intensity around certain things, hyper focus around certain things, being exhausted when after those focus sessions, after, being intense in something, I'm not even sure I finished all 3 pages. I just said, Nancy, can we talk, please? Because I think something's up. And it's not something in my generation, I'm a little over 50, that they even thought about. When I was in school, they never thought about that. We had some kids that were hyper and they were just told to sit down and be quiet. And I recognized myself as one of those kids, but didn't really think that, that kind of kid, right? I was always the kid that talks too much in class. Julie has great potential, but she talks too much in class. I was always the kid that was moving, wiggling, playing with something. I was watching the teacher and probably doodling in my notebook, especially in high school and college, when I thought I had to listen the closest. I am not a person that can hear. And remember, I'm a visual learner, so I would make notes in my notebook and doodle so I could see the page in my mind. And that's how I would remember stuff. It wasn't about necessarily, rote recognition, but it was about, I could see the page in my mind. He told me a story. I remembered it. And it was just eye-opening to me. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. So that's kind of how this whole conversation started. Yeah. And the more you and I talk, the more we uncover. And I'm like, right, yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
And honestly, so when you called, I wasn't there are some people that I would expect that call from. Mm-hmm. And I think my first statement was, really, what makes you think that? Because it wasn't really super obvious to me. You keep it very well hidden.
I do, and I have to consciously keep it very well hidden. Yeah. Very much so. In my professional world, there's probably 1 or 2 people that might know I get a little excited. Yeah. I do have high highs and lows. And I try to keep it very standard, right? Try to keep it managed at work. At home, it's a different story altogether. I know what I have to do to be professional. I know what I have to say. I can play that game. But at home, it is a lot more evident than it would be at work. Um, but there are times at work that I struggle. I struggle. I struggle sitting still. I think that's one of the main reasons why I enjoy operations so much. So I've been in distribution of various things for over 25 years, running 250,000 square foot warehouses bigger than a half mil all over the country. That's what I do now. I have 6 facilities all over the US, and I have to get up and walk. I can't sit still. I'm a person that when we're in a Zoom meeting and there's no camera on, I'm walking around my office. My legs going 1,000 miles an hour. One of my best friends and I were riding in a red Honda Civic, driving down to an outlet mall, and my legs going 1,000 miles an hour to the point where it was shaking the car. And she said, "You have to stop. You're making me sick." I didn't even know I was doing it. And the more that you and I talked and the more I showed you about
Mm-hmm.
my home life, the more you're like, "Oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense." Um, Around operational and process, and things have to be in a good spot, in the right spot, in groups of 3, or there has to be a efficient way to get from point A to point B. My refrigerator is going to look very different than yours. My desk at work looks very different than other people, and I have to be able to adapt to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I think I have changed over the past years as I've gotten older. My desk, nothing's out of place. Everything is filed, sorted. When I go away, it's clean. I have a supervisor that reports to me, well, manager now, that is a Post-it note person. And I walk into her office and my skin crawls because there's too much to see. There's too much to do. I'm like, "But how do you know what I'm asking you to do?" She's like, "Oh, you're this list over here." I'm like, "What's that list over there?" She's like, "Oh, that's things I have to do tomorrow." It's just a completely different way of
Mm-hmm.
thinking. And I've had to adjust to their way of thinking because what works for them is great, but it will not work for me. And what works for me is great, but it will not work for them. And I think that's one of the biggest things that you have to, as a manager or a colleague or any kind of professional, you have to realize that the way you think is not the way everybody else thinks. And that is part of my frustration when I'm training. For example, I just took, like I said, I just took over 6 facilities and I'm training them on how to do a budget. Their budget is due in a couple of weeks. And for me, numbers and finances just make sense. For them, this is their first foray and they don't understand why this has to link to that, which has to link to that. And I struggle not understanding why they don't understand. But I have to take their point of view that they've never seen this. I have different types of learners. I have visual learners, I have audio learners, I have people that can follow instructions very, very well. So it's been an education, and in the last year, taking on these new responsibilities, knowing that I struggle, I've approached it different, and it seems to be working. They're learning, they're doing well. Is it perfect? No, but that's okay. I can sit down with them and tell them this is where we need to be. This is where we're going. And there was actually a time about 6 weeks ago that I was training and I had some difficult news and I was dealing with it. I thought I was dealing with it. My anxiety was up to here. My patience level was as low as it could possibly be. And I'm trying to train and they're asking questions. And in my mind, like, this is so stupid. Why do they not know this? Didn't say it out loud like that, but snapped, started biting back at him and had to come back 2 hours later that afternoon and say, "You know what? I'm sorry. My anxiety got the best of me. I wasn't concentrating. I had too many things in my mind racing, and I apologize for snapping at you." It's shocking sometimes how it can affect your personality.
Mm-hmm. And it really, and it sneaks up on you, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, it doesn't just,
No,
you
no.
give
And the
warning.
more I try to control it, the more out of control it gets. And I've learned some of my triggers, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't. And I know to get up, walk away, go do something different. when I can almost feel my neck getting red, and I got to get up and walk away. Just get out of the situation, come back. And then when I'm hyper focused, it's even worse. Because when I'm thinking about, for example, I had to do a whole budget in like 24 hours, and I'm thinking. And when people come in, I'm like, what do you want? I just lose my patience because you're trying to take me away from what I'm thinking about. And I've got to get this done. There's a timeline. I've got to have it done by 8:00 tomorrow morning. And why are you talking to me? Because whatever you are saying, as important as it is, probably isn't as important as what I think this is. And I have to be very cognizant about, how could I help you? And I'm not a super empathetic person anyway. But when you manage 300 people, you have to be, right?
Yes.
So I have to be able to switch back and forth. And sometimes that's pretty difficult to do.
It is. I think it's difficult for any manager, right? To balance those different priorities and needs and strategic objectives and the day-to-day tactical. But then when you're fighting your own brain on top of it, and everything looks so normal, quote unquote, on the outside.
Yeah, they
right?
don't know.
They don't
have
know.
No clue.
They have no idea.
They don't see my leg going 1,000 miles an hour underneath my desk, or me flipping my feet back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. When my things where I start to lose my patience, my tells, I call them my poker tells. I'm not a pen clicker. I'm not a tapper. My leg and foot go 100 miles an hour. It just like in the red car where she was saying, cut it out. You're shaking the whole car. I don't even realize I'm doing it. But that's my outlet. And that's my outlet. And even as a baby, when I fall asleep, my foot's going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, to the point where my mom had to get new sheets or flip them around because I'd wear holes in them. So
that's next level.
Yeah, that's step up a bit. But yeah, I mean, and I didn't, when you and I went through those questions and I started really going backward in my history, I'm like, whoa, what about that? What about that? What about that? From the time I was little, Julie's got great potential. Julie has, and I'm a really fast reader. So in first grade, I can remember in first grade going through, we had to read something for reading comprehension. And I was the first one done. And then I'm sitting there like messing around, goofing around. And it was, Julie, hold still. Julie, be quiet. Julie, you're distracting. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. But you can't expect me to sit still while everyone else is reading. I was losing it. And in college, I was even, we would get an exam. And for me, it was a race because I could read really fast and I'd be the first one done with my exam. I would hand it in and he's like, well, don't you want to check your answers? I'm like, no, I know I'm right. No, it was the same way in grade school. They'd be like, Julie, if you're done early, go ahead and double check your answers. I'm like, no, I know the answers. And I'm not saying that I'm brilliant by any means, but I always had it pretty easy in school. I was not one of those people that had to study hours and hours and hours and hours. That was just not me. So when I was done, I was done. There was no going back and looking and second guessing. The answer is what the answer is. From first grade to college,
Yeah.
and I even see it in my professional world. I get done with a budget, I close it, I save it, I walk away, I come back an hour later, and I totally refocus before I get back into it. It's my double checking my answers, but it's really hard for me to look at it again.
Interesting.
Because I have the answer. I know it.
Well, and it's not exciting.
No.
Right? You've already done it. You've done the work.
Moving on, next thing.
You just want the next. Yeah. The next dopamine hit, the next exciting thing.
And that's right.
Next problem to solve.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was interesting. I lived in Europe for 5 years. And one of the things that living in Europe affords you to do is travel cheaply.
Cool.
Well, you get to see some really cool things that most Americans never get to do. But we would plan a trip and we'd be doing one thing and I'm already looking to the next. And then we'd get to the next and I'm looking, okay, what's tomorrow? So I never got to enjoy what I was doing. I'm always looking, okay, what's the plan for the next? And I missed out. And that was pointed out to me. And I'm like, oh, you're right. I'm parasailing the Greek Isles. This is really cool. What's tomorrow? Just moving on. And I didn't enjoy some of what I should have enjoyed. And that is something cognizantly I try not to plan too many activities on vacation. I'd rather just try to wing it, totally against my personality, but I'll try to wing something fun. You want to go play putt-putt? Let's go. You want to go to the beach? Come on, let's go. But if I plan it and I know that I'm scheduled to be somewhere at some time, that's all I can think about. It's about completing tasks and getting them done and moving on to the next thing.
Yeah. That's interesting. And such a common theme with people with ADHD is that you want the dopamine hit, you want to get something done, but as soon as it doesn't matter how great it is, it doesn't matter how life-changing that task was or how many people it even helped.
Mhm.
You're on to the next before like literally the second it's completed, which is super frustrating, right? Because like if you're talking about relationships,
Well, let's not go there.
and it's tough to live with us sometimes.
It is.
Right?
It is. And it's two pieces, right? In my professional world, I've completed a lot of projects. And I've had, whether it's a bonus or certificate or awards or all those things, I'm like, okay, yeah, thanks. And now I don't appreciate what I have. Sometimes I don't appreciate what others appreciate. They tell me, oh, you did a great job, that you were a rock star, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, doing my job. That's done. Let's go on to this one. And that makes so much more sense in my mind now that it's about exactly what you said. I'm done. I'm completed. Yay. Next. And I'm constantly next. I have not been in the same role in 25 years for more than 3 years. I'm either up, over, doing something different. I'm hopping. I can't, it's not enough. It's not enough. And when you get to be in your 50s, you begin to think, when's high enough? When is enough? And I thought, we're running the distribution center that I was at, a few months ago. "Oh, I can retire from here." No, I'm done. It's boring. Everything's good. Hand it off. Let's go to the next thing. What's big project? And I think that's why so I've always been the tactical, hands-on, go in, fix it, make it better, move on to the next one. Go in, fix it, make it better. And it didn't matter where it was. All over the world. I've been all over the world with my company. It's been a fantastic experience. But there's always been the next one. In the current role that I'm in, I will always have the next one, but it's going to be in the current role. So being in charge of multi-distribution centers, I will be building, I will be changing, I will be, process improvement, but it'll still be in this role. And I think strategically now, as opposed to being tactically, I have to think strategically, and I have to let others, I have to train them well enough, right? And but move them in a way that we can be more successful. And I think that is probably where I need to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, it's a good next step, right? It's a good, that good progression.
We'll see. I don't have a 321,000 square foot warehouse to walk around in, but I'll be doing laps around my office.
Laps are laps. It doesn't matter where you're at. Yeah. So a lot of questions I get asked are around what type of careers are good for people with ADHD. So maybe I know we talked about like walking around the warehouse and logistics centers and being up and around. What other parts work well with your brain?
That's a good question. Anything I can get my hands on. There are days that I will get on a forklift and I'll go pick. Because either I have too much energy.
For people that don't know.
Go pull cases off pallets and build pallets and ship things. I'll go actually pull cases and lift 30, 40, 50 pound cases because I have to get my energy out. Before that, when I was more in a corporate role, it was about travel, go do. I also enjoyed the business analytics part, the reporting piece, the KPI piece. Everything's a game to me. And I need to score higher and better and be perfect and do more. And we'll get there. And getting these folks to get there and getting myself to get there. When we have things like environmental audits, I want to be perfect. I want to be perfect. I've never shot for average. And my sites and my folks who work for me know that. And they want to be perfect because they want to meet the same goal. I bring them in. This is our goal. This is not my goal. This is our goal. This is our building. This is our house. Let's take care of it and let's make sure it's perfect. And one of the things that I think I'm really proud of is I built a facility in Clinton, Netherlands. I came over to Cincinnati, Ohio. I've just built another one a few miles away in Cincinnati, Ohio. And when you start building new facilities, people come over and they want to see what you're doing. And when you're, revamping facilities, they want to see what you're doing. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is when people come in and say, this place looks fantastic. It's clean, it's organized. I've never seen a DC like this. The fire marshal came in and said, man, I don't even have to spend 10 minutes here. I can see you guys have it going on. It's that reputation. I am more proud of our reputation than giving me a bonus. That means more to me than money sometimes. Now, don't get me wrong, I like money, but It's about Julie's reputation
Mm-hmm.
is spot on, and it's where we want it to be. And I'm not going to let anybody or anything ruin that reputation, but I'm going to bring others to gather that reputation with me.
Yeah.
So business analytics, having the competition, the game, the moving forward, always moving forward. My biggest struggles in business and where I do not do well, if I have to sit in a 4-hour workshop, I can't focus that long. I cannot do it. I can't sit still that long. I will be the person that is listening, intently listening, but also doing something here. So when they say laptops down, I'm like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? And then I start tapping, wiggling. I can't sit still that long. Um, uh, those are difficult. So any of those long-term meeting type things where you have to be back to back to back, if I can get up and move around in between them, I'm good. You give me an 8-hour global meeting, I struggle. I am not going to be the person that is going to take the time that they should, like in an HR role, and vet out every single possible scenario. Don't have enough empathy, probably don't have enough patience to deal with some of the things like that. And in my role, I deal with a lot of HR issues. And I have to take sometimes a cue from one of my supervisors, and when they say, "We need to think about what it's like at them for home." Okay, you're right. You're right. I have to be more empathetic. I have to be more patient because that's not at all what I would do. And that's a difficult one. It's a difficult one.
You don't give yourself a lot of credit on the people side, I think sometimes, but you also, I think it was a few months ago that you got outstanding feedback on an employee survey too. So
Fair.
I think you should give yourself some more credit for that because I think you know when to rein it in and when to take more time. And it may not be natural and you may not love doing those days.
Right.
But I think you do it in a way that also obviously your people feel like they're part of your team and that you care about them.
That's true. That's true. And one of the things that I do is every morning when I do my safety walk, I stop and say good morning to every single person. I know about their kids. I know about their dogs. I know what they did this weekend. So it's not that I'm not interpersonal.
Mm-hmm.
It's just when they are not acting the way or behaving the way I would prefer them to behave.
You mean they don't do everything you say and want to do?
They do, just not the way I do it? No, I'm just teasing.
So I would love to actually tackle two different angles. Okay. You can pick which one we go first.
Of course.
So I would love to know, I would bet, and maybe we should have the people that report to you.
No, we will not.
On the podcast.
No, we will not.
That would be fun. But how do you have quite a few people that report up to you as supervisors and managers, right? So how can, a lot of times people come and call me and say, how do I help my manager who I'm pretty sure has ADHD, but they don't know they have ADHD, which would have been you about a year ago.
That would have been me about a year ago.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the second part of that is, how does your manager, the person that you report to, how have those relationships worked better and what works for you?
Okay, let's go with my manager first.
Okay.
So my manager is an East Coast kind of guy. My manager is probably very similar to me.
Okay.
But he has actually said to me, Julie, man, I feel like sometimes I work for you. So I'm one of those, and I was very clear with him when I came back to the US. You leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. And if you need something from me, find me. I'll take care of it. But let me do my thing. And if you try to micromanage me, this is not going to work. And he's like, done. And I've said that to a lot of my managers in the past. If you don't trust me to do the job, then you don't want me here. Let me do my thing. If I'm dead wrong, then tell me, okay? And there have been 1 or 2 times where he has come back and said, Julie, I need you to calm down. I need you just to, stop, think, and now respond. Because I'm one of those that when someone comes and says, we need X, Y, and Z, I'm like, oh man, we're not doing that. There's just no way we're doing that. And then I need about 30 minutes. I'm like, okay, here's how we're going to do it. And he knows that. And he's like, okay, Julie, I'm going to put you in a meeting. I don't want you to respond or say we aren't going to do anything until you talk to me. I'm like, okay. And sure enough.
Let's just pause. That's great. Like the impulsivity of like, it's all or nothing, right? And the impulsiveness of coming back with a quick answer gets us in so much trouble
yes.
in every aspect of our
Yep.
lives many times,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So that tip alone of the manager saying, I don't want you to respond in the meeting. We can talk about it afterwards,
Yep.
gives you that freedom of like, I know I'm not supposed to respond.
Exactly. So I have to keep my mouth quiet. And
Right.
it works for me. It works for me. I'm like, okay, this is one of those I have to not respond. Okay. All right. Very good. And I can listen. And then I listen different, actually. Because, I mean, in my mind, I'm still ticking off, no way, no way, no way, no way. And this way I'm going, well, what can we do? You know? And it ends up. And so then 30 minutes later, he'll call or he'll Teams. What do you think? And I'll be like, well, okay. So now I have the levelness of both sides. I think this is crazy, but I think we could do this instead. He's like, great, go with your instead and respond back to the group. So he has figured that out and has helped me through some of that.
You know, just a quick ADHD tangent here for a second, but I think one of like the fun parts about our conversations is you can process information very, very quickly. Mentally, right? Like in your head, you can go through the 17 different options, check off at least 15 that won't work, the reasons why, and just eliminate, and then go to the two possibilities with the right one. Like literally faster than I can describe all that. And I am a very verbal processor. So I have to talk through each of the 17 ideas and why they may work and why they may not, but the feelings that come along with those and all the different aspects and really painting the whole picture for everything.
And you can see my face just cringing while you're talking because you're still talking. I know what you mean. Yes.
And I can see and sometimes I do it antagonistically.
Yeah, I know you do.
Like right now. But other times I really like that is how my brain works. And I can't get to that. You can tell me the right answer. And it's not that I disagree with you.
Right.
I just have to literally explore them all verbally out to the world.
Yep.
And then process. And then we get there.
It just takes you 6 times longer than me. In the meantime, I'm going, woo, hoo, hoo. All right, okay. Yep. Okay. She said.
And I can only imagine that happens, not just with me.
No.
Probably with your team when they bring you ideas or a problem to solve.
So that's a great point. Anyone that has worked with me or works with me currently, don't send me a 4-paragraph email describing what you want. Give me 5 bullets. Show me the money. Then we can talk. And I don't hire people like me. There's not a single one of my managers that is exactly like me, because I don't need a supervisor or manager that thinks like me. I need the opposite, because I know there has to be a different perspective. The person with all the Post-it notes, she is like that for her reason, and I hired her intentionally so she can look scattered all around and figure out what I'm missing. And then I can rein her in and we can get a nice set of 4 Post-it notes as opposed to 400 Post-it notes. One of my favorite interview questions is about getting from point A to point B. And you can be one of 3 vehicles. And which vehicle are you? And I do it in every single one of my management or supervisory interviews.
Can you go through that for us?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll do it with you. I know the answer, but we'll do it with you. Your job the goal is to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the goal. You can be
Hey, hold on. I need to refocus. And actually, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Point A to point B.
Got it.
Okay. You can be a race. You might have to write these down. There's more than one. You could be a race car.
Yeah.
And a race car is going to get from point A to point B the fastest. They're going to zip right by. They're going to be the person that gets all the accolades. They're going to be at the checkered line, woohoo, with the champagne and the big cup, and they're going to love life.
That sounds fun.
Yeah,
I want to be that one.
I know you do. The problem is from A to B, you might hit a rock. And if you hit a rock, you won't hit the goal.
Yeah.
You might crash, right? You may not finish the race because you're going to bump into something and crash. Okay. The other vehicle is an SUV. This SUV is going to go from point A to point B. Nothing is going to stop this SUV. They may take a different path. They may find a more efficient path, but they are going to plow through. Nothing is going to stop the SUV. He will always get from A to B, but may not be the fastest. The third vehicle is...
Wait, hold on. The SUV can carry a lot of people, which is kind of fun too, because it's kind of like a party going from A to B.
Wow, no one has ever said that, Nancy. And I've interviewed probably 50 managers. Okay, you're right. Party bus. That's not what I'm thinking, but you party bus. Okay.
Okay, third.
The third one, I'm really scared to tell you this one. The third one's an ambulance. The ambulance is going to stop and make sure that everybody gets across the line from A to B. They are going to, they may not actually get to B because they're so busy helping everybody else, but they're absolutely going to get everyone taken care of, and they'll be happy when they get to point B with everybody in tow. Are you an ambulance, a race car, or an SUV?
I mean, I'd love to say I was an ambulance that like really cared about getting everyone across the finish line, but that's definitely
that'd be the first one I would mark off for you.
I'm
that
like
you are
the race car with a party bus in tow that might be getting whiplash, but also having a heck of a good time getting across the finish line. And maybe the party bus has to pull the race car if it hits a rock, but we're going to get across that finish line.
And you're going to pop the champagne and have a good time.
And really going to
party. Put the cup on your wall. And
we're going to party no matter where we land.
Fair. Okay. That is the most different answer I've ever had doing this for the past 10 years. But okay. I am a little bit of a hybrid as well. I'm an SUV with a first aid kit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive right by you. I'm going to throw the first aid kit. I'm going to find the most efficient way there, but I will absolutely get there.
Yes.
I will absolutely get there. I'll have a little empathy. I'll toss you a first aid kit and say, hey, bandage up. Let's go. And then I will keep going. Mm-hmm.
So in predictive index world, that's definitely like a results and discipline type driven. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is very much you.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Score a number. It's all a game. The bigger, the better.
Got to get across the finish line.
Got to get across the finish line. Got to do it the best. Got to save the most money. Got to beat all the KPIs. And that's true whether I am at work or driving back home. It's a game. The GPS is an estimated time to beat, not a recommendation. Or if I'm at home, how fast can I mow my lawn in the most efficient manner to get the perfect stripes? It's everything. It's if you walk through my house, there is a efficient manner to do it because it is the most effective. That way I can grab this, grab that in one fell swoop and get it all accomplished very quickly. It's
for us both having ADHD pretty significantly, I would guess that we struggle fairly significantly with ADHD. We have very, very different ways that ADHD comes out.
Yes, for sure.
I will say that both of our homes are very minimalistic.
Yeah.
In the way, like there is not a lot of picture frames and a lot of decorations.
I couldn't even decorate. I had to have your mom and sister come down and all I did was swipe my card because I can't see that to be nice. To me, it's just all distractions.
Yeah.
Now, they did a fantastic job. It looks gorgeous.
But it's still very minimal.
It's very minimal, but because they know me.
Mm-hmm.
They know me. They know I like stripes and blocks and circles and things. They gave me some kind of pattern rug, which when it looks down, looks fantastic. But to me, I'm like, oh my God. But yes, you're right. Very minimalistic.
But then on the opposite side, I literally can't remember where I put my keys about 90% of the time. And I know that drives you nuts. Yes. I don't even take the same way to work every morning. I don't get my children ready for school in the same way every day. Like I don't do there's very little structure in my life. And I know you're cringing. I know.
My world is a routine. It's exactly the same time within a minute every single morning. My routine.
Within a minute?
Within a minute. Absolutely. Absolutely. I know exactly what time I'm supposed to brush my teeth. I know exactly what time I'm supposed to go downstairs and pack my lunch. I know exactly what time I feed the cats. I know exactly what time I walk out the door. I know exactly what time I'm going to smoke a cigarette on the way to work. And I mean, it is absolutely. It is all routine. And you get me out of my routine, I'm going to forget something. I know exactly where I'm going to put my keys. I know exactly where my badge is. I know where in my bag I'm putting my lunchbox. And if something goofs me up, like a cat gets sick on the floor and I have to take an extra 3 minutes, I'm thrown. Absolutely thrown. Yeah, it's very comforting to me to do the exact same thing. My coffee goes off exact same time. I use the exact same thing. I eat the exact same thing for lunch every day for about 6 or 8 months. And then I'm like, oh, I'll try something new. But extremely routine.
See, and we're very much alike in that too. I could have a cheeseburger with no bun and green beans to eat for breakfast, lunch, dinner for like months.
It's
Yeah, like
fine.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
it's
Yeah.
fine.
It's just interesting how we are so different in
Mhm,
so many ways. And our careers have been very different, like
mhm.
so many things. But then there's these similarities.
Yeah. Yep.
And like we were even talking last night about where we put the ketchup back in the refrigerator. And I don't know. I think it's just that I don't pay attention. I don't pay attention a lot, but to where I got it from. And so I have no idea where to put it back.
'Cause you're distracted. You're talking, you're
I'm
moving, you're grabbing
thinking,
something else.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm thinking of 30 other things that are way more fun than the ketchup.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to put the mayonnaise back next to the turkey, next to the cheese, because when I go in my refrigerator, I'm gonna grab them all at once to make a sandwich. So to have the ketchup in the way is just inefficient.
I mean, the way you were talking about it last night, I was thinking, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Like truly, like that would save me so much time from
Yes,
trying to find the ketchup or trying to
just
find
saying. Just saying. Yes, I would agree with you.
and I'm going to challenge myself to try to do that. I don't honestly, I don't know if I can
Oh my, are you
do
gonna
it.
ask me to move my mayonnaise? Because that's gonna be a
No,
problem.
I'm going to try to put the ketchup back in the same spot each night.
Each night, or put your keys in the exact spot every night. There's no question as to where things are.
Yeah. It's a whole new and I actually do have a better appreciation for Thad, my husband now, because
Because he agrees with
I
me.
know he's so much more he's your brain in that way.
Yeah, yeah.
And his frustrations that have come out over the last 10 years about not being able to find the ketchup
It
or
is frustrating.
having to move 13 things to get to whatever, or opening up a drawer and it's not in the same drawer that it was in the day before. I
Yeah.
have a new perspective of he's not just being annoyed, just be annoyed. He does it for a
It's
reason.
uncomfortable.
Hmm.
I lived with someone in Europe who was as polar opposite of me, more like you, but even slobbier. And I could, I
Slobbier? Is that a word?
slobbier.
Is that a word?
I'm making it a word. She would leave stuff all over. She would have 8 pairs of shoes in the living room. She has 2 feet. Why do you need 8 pairs of shoes in the living room? I said, can you just put them off to the side? Well, no, I might wear them
I
tomorrow.
just
And finally got to, she was a placer. She would leave stuff all over the place. And I can't handle the mess. Everything has a place and there's a place for everything. So we actually made the kitchen table one that is out of my sight from where I generally spend most of my time, where she could pile anything. Because she would complain, Julie, you cleaned it away. Now I can't find it. What? I mean, I cleaned it away. Well, I know it was sitting over there, but it's not there now. So you cleaned it away. And in her broken English, it makes sense. But I probably did because I couldn't stand to look at it there for 4 days. But I knew it was there, but it doesn't need to be there. So we compromised. It was a big compromise that she had a table that she could pile everything she wanted on. And I just wouldn't look at that table. I wouldn't look at that table. She could find her stuff. It was shocking to me how she could find her stuff. I couldn't find a darn thing that she would ask for. Not at all. It was
which
just
that seems as much like ADHD as you
could
in
be
a
just
different
a little
right.
different.
Like some myself included love to pile things, but the problem is that you pile it and you can't find it because
Mhm.
you've stacked it on top of. But it feels good to like pile things in groups for some of us.
Yeah. She's like,
Yeah.
I know it's here, and she start digging and digging and digging, and I'm just like, I can't function like that.
So interesting. Okay. So I would love to talk to you for hours,
Of
but
course.
I think you have another call to do.
Yeah, I do. Actually, I have a job I have to go do.
We pulled you away temporarily. I think we covered everything. My last question
Mhm.
is what would you tell your 7-year-old version of yourself if you could go back,
That's a good
looking
question.
back? Because we have a lot of, I want to make sure that we are talking to those kids that are struggling now and they think that they're the only one. And I want them to know that they're not.
And that's exactly probably what I'd say. First, I would say is you're gonna be okay. You did all the things you want to do. You're gonna be okay. Keep being you, and you're not the only one. Yeah, your mom used to ground you and you'd get in trouble for Julie talks too much in class or Julie wiggles too much or sit still in church or you better wait till we get home, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, you're going to be all right. You're going to be surprised at what you can do because some days I'm still surprised at how I get to where I am today, honestly. And yeah, I would say you're going to be okay. Be prepared, but you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I like that. I'm not surprised at all at where you've ended up. Knowing your brain and what you've accomplished is awesome and amazing. And to now know that you were fighting your own brain in so many different ways on top of that. And you still are and will always be.
I always will be, but at least now I know why. And before it was just like, mind racing and I can't get it to stop and I don't know why. Does everyone do this? Why doesn't I felt like the lone kid out, the lone teenager out, the lone adult out. I'm only, it's my issue. I've got all these things going through my mind and nobody else does. I'm weird. And yeah, I'm not. I'm not normal maybe, but I'm not abnormal, which is a big deal.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So anybody that is potentially thinking that maybe ADHD fits their bill, would you suggest that they explore it further?
I think there's a calmness in me once I figured out that there's a reason, and that it's okay. There's so many times growing up that in my 20s and 30s that I would get frustrated and angry and why can't they see what I see? If I could just have known that they just can't think like you, and that's okay, and the way you think is okay. Come to some kind of compromise. Because in my 20s and 30s there was no compromise. It was my way or the highway, and sometimes that worked, and sometimes it did not. And I've had some failed relationships because of it, whether that be professional or personal. So yeah, you're gonna be okay, kid, is what I would say to myself at 7.
I love that.